Each picture is a fragment that I'm going to put somewhere in a drawer, and I come back to this drawer again and again and again to remember. I guess my memory is average, and I guess I need photography to remember.
This podcast is brought to you by Squarespace. All right, guys, we are back with another episode of the ISO 320 Brooklyn Photo Works podcast. And today we have a very special guest, Jean-Francois Campos. I know I didn't pronounce that beautifully because I am certainly not French, and the French that I did study many years ago has eluded me because I haven't been to France enough. My fault. But JF, as we will call him, because it's a lot easier, and that's, I think, how he prefers it. JF, Daniel met JF. We'll get to that at some point a few months ago, and then I got the pleasure of meeting him as well. And then through meeting him, we got to see his work and see the kind of work that he produces, and totally blown away. I mean, he does incredible fashion, beauty, portraiture, I would say. If you look at his Instagram, Jean-Francois Campos, we'll make sure that we get that right. You'll instantly be transported, and you'll also probably want to delete all of the work on your Instagram because his work is just so beautiful. The editing, I want to get into that. I want to get into how you get the eyes in the portraits that you're producing to look so unbelievably three-dimensional, even though the portraits have like a very kind of natural and organic look. So without really listening to me talk that much, let's jump right in, and we'll get right in with JF. And JF, thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure.
And even though oh yes, of course. So even though that I kind of gave you my interpretation and take on you, how do you describe your work as a photographer?
I think that I would say I try to tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think about photography. It's not what I think about. I've never really thought about photography. I think about recording something. I think about keeping a memory. In a way, I'm obsessed with photography, but I'm not obsessed with photography. What I'm obsessed with, that's what I have to say, or what I'm trying to understand. I would say it's more what I'm trying to understand. And my camera is just a prolongation of an extension of the question, and an obsession that is to keep memories and to keep fragment. Each picture is a fragment that I'm going to put somewhere in a drawer, and I come back to this drawer again and again and again to remember. I guess my memory is pretty average, and I guess I need photography to remember. But I take pictures to tell stories about, I guess, myself, or a story about myself through the people and through the word.
So, I mean, that's a beautiful answer, and I love that idea, the idea that there's this momentary slice of time that you're encapsulating, which is one of the most beautiful things about photography. And with your photography, with the stories that you're telling, are these preconceived stories that you have, or are you realizing this when you're working with whomever you're shooting? Because, when I look at your, like, for example, like if I look at your Instagram right now, I noticed that you've recently been very prolific. You've put a lot of new work up there, perhaps. And when you look at it, there's definitely a cohesive look. The imagery definitely says, okay, that's JF's work. I can instantly see that, which I think is kind of a gift when you have such a noticeable style that it actually almost, defines or helps to kind of define you as a photographer. And I don't mean that it locks you into one thing specifically. I mean that I look at that and I say, okay, that's JF's work. So this collaboration, this story, is this something that before you shoot these subjects you're thinking about, or is this something that happens during the process?
Well, first, thank you so much, because that's a very beautiful compliment, and I'm very honored with what you said. Then to address the question specifically, look, I've been doing that for a long time. And when I say a long time, it's really a long time. I've been doing that for over 30 years. And 30 years as a professional photographer. And before I was a photographer, I was taking pictures. I took pictures for about 15 years before I, started really being a photographer professionally. So I'm old, number one. Number two, I have done many different things, and at the same time I've done many different things, and I've always done the same thing. And I'm going to try and explain very, very quickly what it means. I don't know where I'm going. I know where I want to go, and that's how I've lived my life, and that's why I live my life every day. I have an idea about something. I have an idea that is based upon a desire. I want to go somewhere. I'm obsessed with going somewhere. And the direction, the journey is going to be what I'm doing is the result of the journey. So the story that I'm going to have to, that I'm going to tell, they are the stories that are going to be the one carrying me up through this journey, or carrying me on through this journey. To be more specific, I wanted to be a fashion photographer. But I was coming from a very modest family, and it's not like 100 years ago, but still it's about, it's about 35 years ago, 40 years ago, 35 years ago, 35 years ago. And from where I was coming from, becoming a fashion photographer was not an option, and there was not the internet, there was not everything that we have today, and it was like a sort of, absolutely, nobody knew how to become a photographer at that time. There was no, there was no YouTube tutorial. There was no, and the world was very small in a way. It was very local. I was living in the south of France, and I had no idea. I had no idea of fashion. But what I was doing is I was taking pictures of my girlfriends, and I was, dressing them up or undressing them, and I was taking pictures. That's what I was doing, either nude or pictures. So I was taking pictures of girls, and I wanted it to be my life, but I thought that cannot be a life, cannot be a work. And what happened is that one night on TV, I saw a photographer speak. I was 18 years old, and he was a photojournalist. And I had a sort of revelation, and I thought, I want to be him. I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy, and I want to have the life of that guy. And I had the life of that guy, and he became my spiritual father. We became very close. Long story short, after I try and put things together, I became a photographer in a newspaper called Libération, and that guy he's a French photographer called Raymond Depardon, and Raymond was working from time to time with Libération. He's a photographer at Magnum, and I wanted to meet with him forever, obviously, and for the whole time I was at Libération, or for a long part of the time I was at Libération, he was coming, and I was always missing him. We were always crossing paths. We were never meeting. And the day of my 30th birthday, I said to my girlfriend at that time, I said, I know what I want for my birthday. I'm going to purchase, I'm going to make myself the gift of purchasing a print from Raymond, a picture of Raymond. And I tried for 2 weeks to call my friends at Magnum to get this picture, to purchase this picture, and they were ignoring my call. And I was thinking to myself, that's not the way they're going to make money. That's not the way they're going to sell the prints of photographers if they don't get. Impossible to purchase a print. And I wake up on the day of my 30th birthday, and my girlfriend pulls something out from the bed, and under the bed, and she gives me a gigantic box. Wow. And inside there was a print. It was a gift from Raymond, who was wishing me a happy birthday with a beautiful note. And so I called him for the first time, and we met and we sat, and he became really officially my spiritual father, my guide. And we did a part of the road together. And I thought I was going to get to Magnum, and I did not go to Magnum because I realized that I didn't want to be a photojournalist anymore, because I was covering war, I was covering conflicts, and I had just a kid, a baby. And I came to understand that I had chosen to be that guy, to meet with that guy, to one day say to that guy, I did it, and now I'm done. So it became really like, it was a very Freudian experience. It became really like basically my father, to whom I basically said, now I'm done and I'm going to stop photography, because I got where I wanted to go. I wanted to be you, I'm you, and now I want to be myself. And I dive back, and that's how basically the story I say, that's how my photography is basically the result of my journey. And I went back in my mind, to my teenage, and I thought, wow, so now maybe it's time to do what I wanted to do, because I've had a lot of success doing what I imagined myself that I wanted to do, which was being a photojournalist. And I went back and I thought I wanted to be a fashion photographer. And now that I'm like almost basically an established photographer, successful, that I've shot a lot of things, I've done books, people know me. Now I'm free and I can do whatever I want. I don't have a family behind who's going to say, oh no, fashion. And I was in Paris, I was living in Paris, so I had like, and things had changed a little bit. I had like a bit more of a vision of what it is to be a photographer. And so I quit, I stopped photojournalism. And I was supposed to, my application was with Magnum, and I withdrew my application. And I said, no, I'm done. I'm leaving. It's not even I'm not coming, I'm leaving, I'm not even there yet. So I stopped everything. I stayed with my son for 1 year, and I stopped photography. I didn't take one picture for 1 year. And after 1 year, I thought, I miss photography terribly. So maybe it's time now to do what it is that I want to do and to start a new journey. And I became a commercial photographer, thinking fashion is a bit tricky. It's a bit like a big jump. So I became a fashion photographer, thinking an advertising photographer, thinking that's easier. And after a year, I started with an agent, think were really, it was doing great. And after 1 year, I got booked for a campaign for a contract of 2 years with a department store called Printemps, which is the equivalent of Barney's here when there was still Barney's. And so it was fashion campaigns. And I find myself taking a picture of a girl in a tree, like, floating, like. And I go back home and I think, wow, it got me, actually. And so I thought, that's not advertising. Now that I'm grown up, I need to really, deal with the fact that that's where I want to go. And for 1 year, I took those pictures of advertising where I learned many things, where I learned so much, because I had this idea in mind. So it's still the journey. The result is the journey. And the story that I wanted to tell was always the same. It was about talking about women, about the beauty of women. But I hadn't done that, throughout my whole career. But I was doing that through all my photojournalism, because when you look at my photojournalism, there are women everywhere. And I'm photographing women in demonstrations, in strikes, during political meeting. And so there is this continuity of obsession about, the presence of the woman. But there are also, like, throughout the journey from photojournalism, then we're going to go to fashion, there are also all the obsessions that build up throughout the journey, which is the cohesion, I guess, that you were talking about. I think a photographer can do whatever he wants somewhat. He can be wherever he is. Anything can happen. I think that if he looks at life through the filter of his emotions and his perspectives and his intentions and everything that he is, there will always be, in the end, the same thing over and over again. The form doesn't matter. What matters is the perspective, is the vision. What matters is the journey. What matters is what you have in your heart. So I went to fashion, and the way I started fashion, I stopped advertising. I left again another career that I started and was really, really nice. And I thought to myself, okay, I need to stop, and I need to wonder from now on what it is that I want to say, really, if I want to become a fashion photographer. So what I did is that for 2 years, I locked myself down into my apartment and I shot portraits of girls. The first girl who came, I was like petrified. I didn't know what to do. I had a model in front of me and I thought, okay, how does it work? And I remember that's the first time. It's really like the first time. I can tell you, like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this girl? So she helped me very much, and she was super kind, and she showed me how to work with the model. And I spent 2 years doing everything alone: the hair, the clothes, the styling, the makeup, sometimes the light, and I learned about beauty in the sense that I learned what it is that I want to say and who is the woman I want to talk about. It took 2 years. 2 years during which I shot portraits, maybe 5 portraits a day. So it was a very intense, very, very intense period. And it was the most amazing period ever because I was free and because I was learning and because I was doing something that, for the first time, where I was doing the whole thing by myself, without a client behind, without any constraints. So that was like the best teaching ever. And I learned to do everything myself, meaning also post-productions. I learned, I started doing digital for the first time, etc. So that was like a very educational period. And again, it is the journey. I had to go through that. It's not that I had to lock myself down in an apartment to take photographs of girls. No, I had to go through this experience to understand something in my life, to understand my relation to women, my relation to my mother, my relation to women in general, my relation to the world, my, obsession for beauty, my obsession for, the feminine beauty, which had started when I was taking pictures, as a photojournalist, where there was so many women in my pictures. And so I'm a lucky guy, I guess, because I had 2 figures when I was a teenager. One was Raymond, and the other one was Peter Lindbergh. And I'm a lucky guy because 2 years after, I made myself friends in the business, and I was in China with the people of Elite because I was doing portraits for them during the contest. And the boss of Elite was the best friend of Peter. And we like each other. And he says, when we go back to Paris, I will, introduce you to Peter because I want him to see your images. He did so. We sat, and Peter was like, adorable as he's always been with everyone. Looked at the picture, and he said, you need to meet with my agent. I said, okay. So I met with the agent, and I signed with the agent. And so I signed with Peter Lindbergh's agent, and I started in the fashion industry. And for quite some time, the agent was blocking me from everybody, trying to see where he was going to drop me. And he finally dropped me in an Italian magazine called Flair. And I remember I left to China for 1 week with my Leicas, and I shot 250 film for 7 days with one girl. And I did 35 pages. That was my first fashion story. I had no idea how to really work with the team. I mean, I had like some basis, but that was like, it was the most amazing experience ever. And I left again and again and again and again, and he never stopped. And then I changed magazine, etc. So I became a fashion photographer like that. But actually, the truth is, I never became a fashion photographer. Neither I I became a photojournalist or an advertising photographer. I was just a guy taking pictures from the age of 18 years old professionally, or 20 years old until now, which is 50 years old, and that's what I've done my whole life. And I don't define myself by anything else than by someone who takes pictures. I'm not even sure I'm a photographer. I'm just someone who try and tell stories with a camera. So that's a pretty large perspective, and that's more or less how things work in my mind.
Wow. It's an interesting story, because I think that what I'm getting from listening to you is that the camera, the lens, the film, the lighting, it's all just a means. These are just tools.
Yeah.
So if you had chosen to get into a different medium, you would have done the same thing and to tell your story, but you're doing it through photography. And I'm going to have to disagree and say you are very much a photographer. That was definitely something that evolved through all this. Do you find that when you look back, let's say, at that original Flare campaign you shot with that one model for a week, and you did 35 rolls of film or something ridiculous,
250
like
rolls.
150 rolls.
250.
2,500 rolls.
No,
1,600,000 rolls.
25,000 rolls, right?
It's possible, actually.
When you look back at this work now, how do you feel about it? I mean, do you feel?
I feel sad.
What is the sadness? Is the sadness because
it was 10 years ago?
Because of the time that's lost, or because, I mean, are you happy with the work? Do you look at this and say, wow, that was...
I've never been happy with my work.
Well, I don't mean happy like, okay, you're going to have a parade for yourself and say how good you are. I mean, when you look at the work, do you feel that it was something that you're proud of? Or do you look at it, because look, I know we've all talked about this, and I feel this way all the time. Whatever I shoot, I always think about 100 things I could have done better. I'm never happy with anything. Like, in some ways, I hate sharing work, because I look at it and I'm like, I don't ever want to see that again. Not that it's terrible, but to me, I know I can do better. And that's, I think, what makes me want to keep shooting as a photographer. And I probably would be a better photographer if I wasn't just inherently lazy, which I think is part of the human condition. But do you feel that there's elements of your work that you look back at, or do you just feel like you're just constantly moving forward? Because obviously you've created this linear document of work through your work as a photojournalist, through all the different iterations of fashion. You've shot for some of the top fashion magazines in the world. You've done some things that have kind of moved you to a certain level. But do you feel like you don't want to look back? Because when talking about it, you seem to have a lot of affection for, your kind of surrogate father at Magnum, through Peter Lindbergh's help. Like, these are people that have kind of been very special to you, but do you separate the work from that? I'm very curious about that, because like the work that you're posting now may be recent work, but would you ever go back and say, okay, I'm going to start filling in some older work, or is that just behind you?
It's an interesting question. It's something I'm wondering a lot. Photography is about the past. Photography is not about the present. A photograph is something that has been. It's not something that is happening. It already happened. It's just a memory of something that happened. So I believe that all photographers are very nostalgic people. I mean, maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just me. But I'm a very nostalgic person. But at the same time, I don't like to be nostalgic, because I don't like to look behind. I'm obsessed with the future. So I'm torn between my sentiment for the past, which I miss very much, always. And I think that that's the reason why I take photograph, more than writing, more than painting, because I need to keep this trace. I need to say, I was there, I did that. And so, it's sort of, I'm hoarding. I'm hoarding images. That's why.
You're hoarding memories.
Yeah, I'm hoarding memories. But at the same time, those memories are very, very heavy weights.
It's a burden.
Because the more you go, I had a friend of mine, another photographer at Magnum, who was saying the beginning is the easiest, and he was right. It was Gilles Perez. He was right. He was saying the first pictures, then it's complicated, because the more you take photograph, the more you carry this photograph in your mind when you take another one.
Yeah.
And actually, that's very true. The past is a weight, but it's at the same time it's a blessing and a curse. Wonderful blessing, because it existed, because that happened, because of everything that I went through, which is, I mean, that's my life. And life is beautiful, whether it's bad or good. That's just life. I mean, it's a gift, and it's a beautiful gift. And I'm very thankful to everything that I've been able to accomplish, and to all those people I've been able to meet, to photograph, all those lives that I've been able to share on those moments. But at the same time, the past is very scary, because you can sit and scroll millions of images, because I have millions of images in my computer, and saying, oh, and remember, and start living in the past. And that's the danger of photography somewhat, when you have like shot millions and millions and millions of images. You look at the things like postcard, and you think, oh, that was so nice. And I have moments like that where I'm looking at my old pictures and I'm like drawn into the past, which is more or less a part of my temper, to be nostalgic. And then I think, yeah, but I still have a life ahead, and I have so many things that I want to do. And I feel like, oh my God, I'm losing my time looking at the past. I'm losing my time thinking at the past, because I want to do things, because I have things that I want to say, that I want to talk about. And then you try and move forward, and you have like all these things that you've done that come back, and you have to try and chase the memories, to push back, not to chase, to push back the memories, to refresh your mind, and to start seeing again. And that's the question of style. It's a question of, signature. Signature is also like the past. It's a curse. It's a blessing, and it's a curse. In fashion photography, I thought I would be very free. I was coming from photojournalism. I was coming from a place where signature was very important, where we all had to be different. And actually, I realized that in fashion photography, you have to be even more different, because fashion photography is more turned towards fashion than photography today. So it's more a word of fashion people than a word of photographers. It's no judgment. That's just the way it is. It's more like, the trend is more toward people who are, fashion people who happen to take pictures, happen to take photographs. So they learn with everything they have around, which is fashion photograph. So they build up their own style based upon the style of fashion photographers. And so it's pretty narrow in the sense of signature, and they have to find like a very, very, very specific things of their own. And so the business has now this habit of having like extremely niche photographer. And where I thought that being a fashion photographer would be extremely free, because you get into a narrative perspective, because you tell stories, because, especially a photographer like me who love telling stories, I discovered that actually, when I arrived with my first images, I didn't understand that it was going to be my signature.
Right.
And I was using a pen every time different. And when I say a pen, it's a camera, because a camera to me is just a pen.
Right.
And I was using many different things, but no, that was not okay, because the magazine was expecting me to do the thing one way, because the client was expecting me to do the thing one way. It was not about telling the story that I was seeing. It was about telling the story I was seeing through the same style over and over again. So with that said, then everything you've done becomes very complicated, because since I was doing so many different things, since I was exploring so many different fields and so free, I became suddenly sort of prisoner of my images.
Well, that's the difference between being a fine art photographer and exclusively and being a commercial photographer.
Absolutely.
A commercial photographer, the client comes first.
Totally.
And
the client needs to be respected, and I have a tremendous respect for the client, because without the client, you're not here. And I work for the client.
right.
When I tell those stories, I work for the client. I don't work for myself. But I work for the client, and I'm trying to satisfy the client, trying to make sure that the past doesn't become a burden,
Right.
because I don't like to repeat myself in photography. And I have often the sentiment that I'm repeating myself, that I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And what's complicated between art and commerce, it is that I believe that if you want to be a good salesperson, if you want to do a good photograph to sell something, you need to do it with your heart. I don't think that, I don't believe in cold advertising. I don't believe in numbers for numbers. I believe that advertising or commerce, when it meets photography, it's a balance. And the balance is the sentiment, the moment where something that works, something that is true and that is honest. So that's why I'm trying to that's why I'm trying to be all the time. But being true and being honest is difficult with with the weight of the past, with the memory of everything you've shot when you're trying to tell something new. I'm not sure it's easy to grasp.
I completely, I'll relate in my terms. So, I've played music my whole life, and I've done it professionally, and no matter what, I'm always going to play music. But what often is the biggest constraint for me, even though like music is like photography, like I see light and sounds the same way. And what compelled me to stay with music was the fact that I was always progressing, that I never just kind of plateaued. I would have moments where like I couldn't go any further, and all of a sudden I just shot to a new level, and I unlocked something. I opened up this door that I didn't even know was there. But it's very easy when you're playing, and you're playing, collaborating with a group per se, which is like what I do, to fall back on the things that you've done because they work. That's or you need to do that because you're pulling the weight of the people that you're with, because they might not be on your level. And I know that when I'm collaborating with people that are better than me, it allows me to open those doors more easily. They're more accessible. And when I'm playing with people or performing or collaborating with people that are not there, I tend to reach back into that closet of memories from the past, the things that I know that work. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's probably what the same kind of thing that happens to us in photography.
Yeah. That's pretty much the thing, I guess. That's the past is comfortable.
Yeah.
Whatsoever. There is always something comfortable in the past. It's the known.
Always.
And when you look at what's going on right now, why are people so afraid? Because we don't know what's going to happen. That's the unknown. Nobody really likes the unknown. And to be an artist, that's to be in between the unknown and the known. And to be human, that's very often to lean on the known, because the unknown is scary. So, it's this fight between past and present, and past and future, the known, the unknown. And the known is comfortable. And sometimes, you said that, and I don't believe that's true, but you see that you're lazy. No, there is, we all creating, that creating is hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes I see clients who want to be the creative. And you know what? Do it. Be the creative.
Right.
Because you know what? If you think it's easy, if you think it's pleasant, you're so wrong. There is nothing more difficult. I mean, it's very offensive what I'm saying. I'm going to rephrase. There are many things much more difficult, obviously, like going to a factory and having work. Being a creative, it's attention. It's always attention. And it's always fear. Fear not to find what you're trying to find when it's for you, fear to fail, fear not to be good. And when you work for someone, that's the fear of not bringing that person what that person expects. And the thing is that you never know what that person expects. That doesn't exist. And you're here to create it. So it's like the unknown. And you're really facing the unknown. And the unknown sometimes is facing millions of dollars or has millions of dollars, upon you. And so you don't know what you're going to create. And I have this, Dior campaign right now on my Instagram. It's a gigantic budget. You have 3 days to produce something absolutely unreal. And you know that the budget behind makes that you're not here to mess up. You don't have like the possibility of failing. So that's hard. So when I see clients who are like, oh yeah, but you should do this thing like that, I'm thinking to myself, dude, take the job.
Yeah.
I'm happy if you take the job, because that's not a cool job. That's not such an easy job. It's a job where, it's a career, and you have to be able to hold the distance. That's why I'm always impressed by people who think that everybody is a photographer now. No,
Right.
there are a lot of people who can take amazing pictures. The people can take amazing pictures everywhere. It's easier than ever with digital camera, because you see what you do. Before you did not, so you had to work a lot. But now you can see what you do, and being talented at framing, it's normal that everybody is spending a life in front of a screen with frames. So everybody's taking a lesson of photography or framing every day, 24 hours a day. So to take a beautiful photograph it's not difficult, but to tell a story over a life and talk about something very specific with a perspective, a voice, a signature, an intention, with hurt, that's not the same thing. So everybody is not a photographer.
No, and I agree with that. And I look, I've been in that situation, when I was first starting off. I remember I would go in, I would get the shot list, and I would kind of get everything on that shot list, maybe forget one thing. And that's the only thing that the client focused on. Yeah. Even if the rest of the work was great.
It's always like that.
And had a perspective and had a point of view and conveyed the story, you miss one fucking thing. Mm-hmm. And that's all they can focus on.
But then sometimes when you miss that one thing, you're just like, who gives a shit?
Right.
How does the collection, when I deliver the collection, what does that read? How does that tell the story of whether it's a wedding or a job or whatever it is? You can get so nitpicky about, did you get this? Did you get that? And all these, the list from A to Z. And sometimes, if I'm shooting a wedding and the clients say, can I give you a shot list? I'm like, you know what? If there's something super, super important to you, sentimental, if it's your great grandmother's, that she smuggled through Europe to,
so true.
Please let me know. But otherwise, like, I don't want to know. If
I just there is another podcast when this guy was talking about when he goes to a meeting, when he's about to shoot a wedding. When they come up with a shot list, it's done for him. He leaves. He's not accepting the job.
Yeah. So, and when I first met you, JF, one of the first when I left, I purchased an M3 from you. A friend sent me the listing on Craigslist, which is always a little sketchy. And he's a photojournalist, and we're actually going to have him on the show next week. Chuck Fishman, and he sent it to me, and he looked at it, he goes, this is a good one. And I said, all right, if he sent it to me, then I'll go meet this guy at a Starbucks on 23rd Street, and sketchy as fuck. And you said, look for me, I'll have an M10P around my neck. and I was like, all right. But the passion you had for that, I so quickly learned and came to be drawn to, is just the passion you had for, and we met for maybe 15 minutes the first time, 15, maybe 20 minutes, if that. I had my M6 there with me that I just purchased that I ended up returning because it was defective. But you took it up to your ear and you like listened to the shutter, and you're like, it's off. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, like, no, it's off. It's off. This should be, and quickly I realized you weren't full of shit. Very quickly I realized, you said, do you mind if I take this outside with me for a second? I said, okay, take it outside with you. He walks out. This guy I just met walks out the door with my camera. But, it's quickly become, at least for me, a nice virtual friendship that we text, and we kind of share each other's passion for photography, but also it's centered a lot around gear, but not in like a pixel peeping way of,
Not in the
like,
way.
yeah, it's like you bring the romance and the sentimentality and the beauty of a lens or a specific camera, which I find a lot of inspiration for me. It's in my tools, because if I look at something, a camera I have, and if I don't want to pick it up and go out, then I'm not going to take pictures unless it's for a job. But part of what fulfills me is making the pictures that I want to take, and if it's for my personal projects, personal use, my family, my grandfather. I mean, those are the photos to me that are the most special. And it's always nice to bounce these ideas, which is what, Adam and I do, and now recently Mark. We go back and forth and we tell each other what inspires us and why something inspires us. So that's, I've been very appreciative of our friendship with, yeah, it means a lot to be able to share that with you. That's kind of a new outlet, especially during this time when all we are is inside.
And I know JF has an answer, but one thing I just want to say is when I first started taking when I started my photography career, because I started a little bit later, I did a few things beforehand, even though that was what I studied. The photographers, a lot of them that I reached out to and met that were working, did not want to be generous with any information. They did not want to help me. I think it was mainly because they were just threatened, like, here's another New York photographer. Like, what the fuck? Like I started, at doing photojournalism 20 years ago, and you think you can just start doing photography all of a sudden? And I met with a lot of resistance. So, meeting somebody like you, JF, and having you be so generous with information and no pretense, because the accomplishments that you have under your belt are pretty significant. It's rare, I think. I mean, maybe a little more common with social media now, but it's not often that somebody that's had a career that spanned the career that you've had, that has hit a certain level, is wants to share anything that, of the process, because it's so sacred. And I think that you appreciate that when you see that somebody has that respect for it and that passion, that you're like, yes, here you can, here's what I can share.
And it's almost not even like, I need to know what lens, what camera, what f-stop, what shutter speed, those aren't the questions. It's more, here's what I find inspirational, what I love. See what you could do with it. See how you interpret it. It's not that technical. It's more of, here's a tool that I find important, and go out and explore, which is what we all do. And sometimes we gel with something, sometimes we don't. But I think that, is an ever-growing process and always evolving.
So, JF, I just had a question for you as well. Do you shoot mainly digital, or do you use? Because I saw you're using Polaroids as well for the portraits, which look really, really cool. Yeah, just a general question about your workflow, how you approach things.
Okay. So first, the two.
Yeah.
I'm very touched, guys, by what you say. I'm very thankful, very grateful, and I love that I met you, and what can I say? Thank you. Thank you for what you say. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your, for what we share. I'm a simple guy. I live in a city that I love very much because I have a wonderful wife who comes from here, because I have a wonderful family, because New York is fascinating. But I will never fit New York because I come from the countryside in the south of France, from a place where people were kind to each other, and I live in an environment personal, intimate, where loving kindness is everything. So I'm trying to just be normal, and New York is a tough place. New York is a place where people struggle very much, and the struggle makes that it's hard, I guess, to remain, friendly. Maybe that's the perspective that I have about the world today. So it's important to me to be available, because without the people I'm nothing and nobody, and it's through the love and what I share with the people that I can live, and and having time with you and sharing things with you, Daniel, talking about things. To me, that's the fuel of life, and that's the beauty of life. So thank you very much for what you say. It touches me very much, and I'm very grateful. Now, photography. What do I use? Wow. How do I work? Wow. Well, as Daniel said, it's about the romance. It's very magic. I see something, I feel something. Often I don't feel anything and I don't see anything. So that's the big challenge. But when I see something and when I feel something, usually I know that I'm going to have to use a tool, a specific one that comes almost straight away. Guys, just give me a second. I realize that my battery is off. I'm sorry about that, and I need to plug. Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. We can edit this.
Good.
Okay.
You can edit this out.
Adam's
Thanks, Mark.
Fuck, man.
What the fucking fuck?
What?
Something. See Mark frozen, or he's just not moving?
No, I'm just.
Okay. All right. He's like,
I'm just thinking about what.
No, anyway,
you
Mark.
said, so.
no. So I got the MP winder.
I'll be right back.
Oh, nice. Where did you get that from?
I just had the rangefinder adjusted, so I had her.
Okay.
She
cool.
had one. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Adam's out of here, huh? He left. All right. Time to. I think
time to make a party.
Probably.
You're playing with me. You think I'm not going to notice the change on the screen?
Okay, so, by the way.
So Mark. Oh yes, Mark. Sorry.
If you want to maybe.
No. Let's hold off on the.
Yeah.
Until Adam gets back, he'll record.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think he probably used the bathroom or something.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say that I really love south of France. I go to the Basque Country quite often.
Good boy.
And it's just amazing.
I just drank a lot of the wine from there. That's
Yeah.
I didn't know that when I was a kid. I mean, I grew up. I left. I was 18 years old, and my dream was to run away. I wanted to live so bad.
I want to run there so bad.
Oh my God! I was suffocating. I was suffocating in the south of France, and I was like, oh my God! And it took me about 15 years, 15 years, no, not 50, 15 years to realize.
Like, how old are you, man? Like 150.
I'm 125 years old. No, I started young. The thing is that I started young, so I'm 50. I'm 53.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
1967.
66.
66.
I wish
Oh,
67.
he's older than you.
That would
Man.
give me. That would
I'm
give,
67, man.
yeah. 66. Tough.
Nice.
Anyhow, it took me a long time to understand how beautiful is my country, how beautiful is the
is,
south
yeah,
of France,
yeah.
and I miss it so much. I'm like, I miss it so much.
Well, I have a little taste of it every night.
Nice.
The
Like
dry
in a
rosé.
glass. In a glass.
What color? Red or
No, it's very light pink.
very
Very
light pink.
pale pink.
Yeah, I see.
Guys, you
I know that
gotta
one.
see the south of France. It's beautiful, really.
Okay, Mark, to answer your question, the camera, what I use, I use everything, and
Yeah,
I think I've
yeah.
used pretty much not every camera. I've used a lot of things, and I still use a lot of things. The camera I use actually is the one that fits what I want to talk about. When I know that I want to talk about something, because sometimes I don't, and that's also a very interesting thing. Let's say the first case scenario is that I have an idea. It's not every day. I have an idea, I have a desire, I know what I want to talk about, I'm drawn into something, and it's like very physical. Let's say an example. Go back to Berlin. Berlin is very important for me. That's where I started. I started in front of the wall falling in 1989. So that was like a pretty important moment of my life. I went back to Berlin very often. And I went back to Berlin for Flair. I was deciding what story I wanted to shoot for them. I was looking at the fashion, and there was like all those coats, long gray coats. And I think to myself, oh my God, I want to take the girl to Berlin, and I want to tell the story of the angels, of vendors with those long coats. So that's what I do. And you know what? I think to myself, and that's a process, I think to myself, wow, Berlin, first of all, my past memory, so important for me, but Berlin disappeared. Berlin doesn't exist anymore. Berlin, it's not Berlin anymore.
Yeah.
It's disappeared, and
Yes.
it keeps disappearing. And instead of seeing the transformation, which is a beautiful thing, I prefer to polarize on the past, you see. So there's the past, the weight of the past, the nostalgia, weird nostalgia, a bit unhealthy. And so I think, okay, I need a Polaroid, because the 665 disappears, and because this shop in Paris, they had the last pack of Polaroid in France. And when this is going to be done, that's going to be over. So I go to the store and I say, okay, I purchase all the pack. There was no more pack in France. That was the end of 665. And I go to Berlin and I shoot the last 665 that there was in France. So it's a concept. But every photograph you take with the 665, you think it's one less.
Yes.
Less. Until the last one. And I was on Potsdamer Platz when I shot the last Polaroid. The last Polaroid. And this last Polaroid threw me back in time, and threw me back when Potsdamer Platz was not what I had around me. I was like surrounded by building with, beautiful, incredible windows. It was light everywhere. It was like an architect contest. And I was writing for a newspaper 10 years before in the same place, saying that it was an architect contest. Potsdamer Platz had become an architect contest. And this last Polaroid threw me back 20 years before, where I was standing over the wall on the Mirador, looking in between the wall and looking at the leftovers of the bunker of Hitler. So, that's the magic of photography. Sometimes terrible, but that's the magic of photography. And that's how this choice threw me back in time, in memory, in something that was extremely profound, extremely violent, extremely strong, that I had never forgotten. A reminder, like, In French, or French people are going to call that la Madeleine de Proust, the little Madeleine that suddenly throw you back in time and at a specific moment, and everything comes back. So that's an example. And I chose this camera and this Polaroid. But sometimes I'm wrong because I don't feel the thing enough. I don't understand exactly what I want to talk about because maybe I don't want to talk about anything, and I'm just telling myself a story thinking, yeah, I need to talk about something. So that's what I see. And I'm going to take a camera based upon an idea, but actually I rely on the camera. And I think the camera is going to help me. When actually the camera is not a help. When you rely on the camera, it becomes a nightmare because you don't do what you think you see. You do what you think. Because you don't do what you see. You do what you think you see. And you rely on the camera to see. But the camera doesn't see anything. Like, let's take an image, a metaphor. Photoshop. Photoshop, it's fabulous if you know exactly where you go. If you know what you're going to do, Photoshop is amazing. But if you rely on Photoshop to create something, that's not fabulous. It's not going to take you really anywhere. It would be nice. You can do nice things. You can do creative things. But can you do a career? Can you have a signature? Truthful, authentic, honest? Not really. Because it's not about the tools, it's about what you have to say. It's always about what you have to say. And it's always about, turning the right, cursors because, you need to turn them. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do like a curve like that because that's cool. No, I'm going to do a curve like that because that's what I want to say. Because I want this image to be dark, because I want this image. And you know what? When the image will be right, there will be like there will be a note. It's like, finding the note in jazz or in blues, finding the note, running after the note. That will be the moment where it will, there will be the vibration. I will know the image is done when it vibrates. If it doesn't vibrate, that's because it's fake. It's because it's not true. So the camera, it's just the extension. And at the same time, that's what makes things even more complex. There is a third layer. The camera, it's also the transitional object. This transitional object, which is like, the little thing you had when you were a baby, when you were a kid, always in your hand. I don't know how you call that in English, but it's the doudou in French. Like, you pull that from the kid, it becomes insane. He needs that. That's very important.
So if you can, because we know how much you love all different types of cameras and for a certain job, if you only could have one camera and one lens to tell all your different stories, if
Never
you can have one setup,
That's it. Everything, we're taking all your cameras away, and you can only have one with one lens. That's it.
could be film, could be digital, could be
Doesn't matter.
whatever.
Well, I'm gonna make happy people. I shouldn't, but
What's he gonna pull out of the couch cushion?
Right.
the only one. The answer is simple. That's the only one that I've had my whole life, and the only one I've carried with me all the time, and the only one I've used always. Even though I used any, this is one. So I'm going to make Leica very happy. Advertising.
M6?
Leica M6.
Yeah, nice.
With a 35 millimeter. So the 35 millimeter changes over the age. That's not the right one. He has the one. Yeah. That's the one.
This
yeah.
was actually
That
your
was
lens.
actually one of mine.
That was your lens, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's
And you
the
didn't
one.
want to give up one of your M6s.
That's
so
the,
I had to find that in the depths of, I don't remember
Yeah.
where I got it, but
so actually it's a Leica advertising.
Yes.
That-
That's
that's
what
what
this
we-
channel is.
that's some of what we do.
Leica M6, Leica M9, Leica M9, 35 millimeter FLE, 35 semicron.
We all have FLE.
We all have FLEs.
We have the same.
the same
FLE.
disease.
So that's my answer.
So JF, I want to tighten this answer up a little bit. So all of this beautiful work that you recently posted, all these incredible silvery black and whites that seem to have suddenly filled your Instagram feed.
Yeah. Thank you, the coronavirus.
Yes, thank you for that, because before then there was maybe not so much work all the time here. Were all these portraits shot with the same setup? Because a lot of them have a very similar vibe, as far as the focal length and the focus. It seems like there's a lot of consistency. Do you want to elaborate that, or do you want to keep that in your pocket? Doesn't matter.
Oh, no. There are no secrets. And you know the reason why there are no secrets? It's because it's not about the technique. It's never about the technique. It's not about the light. It's not about the post-production. It's not about the camera. It's just about, again, what is it that you want to say? If you know what it is that you want to say, and that you're able to get to the moment where you can say it right, which is like the nirvana, it never exists. But you're always leaning toward that. From there, you the same thing with everything else but the camera, with the light. You use what you need to use to say the thing.
Of course.
Advertising is an amazing experience, because you learn to tell a story. As a photojournalist, I was telling a story for the cover in one image, but I was telling stories with a series of images. In advertising, you learn to tell a story in one image. One image, that's the full story. And to tell the full story, the entire story, since usually that's not your story, but it's a story that you're here to tell for the people and that you have a brief, you need to be able to build up the image at the extent that the story becomes extremely clear. So from there, you have to go through technique options, lighting, post-production, the camera, etc. So advertising is the best teaching when you want to learn really how to tell something with photography, because you have to become really, really, really educated with everything that has to do with photography. So I learned a lot about lighting when I was doing advertising. I learned everything about cameras. A lot about cameras and technique in digital when I turned to advertising. And I learned that the answer is not about being amazing at lighting, having like an incredible knowledge of Flash or HMI or Kino, and being able to use like 125 lights on set, but that the answer is to have like the right light. And my portraits are about, you were talking about the eyes, they're about that. They're about what is behind
the story.
They're about, it's not even they're about who is that girl. No, they're about how do we feel? What's going on? And there is a form of abandonment. There is a moment, it's like, I always say that I do this portrait like on a breath. This moment, exhale. That's the exhale moment, the moment where you free everything, the moment where you release, where you let go. It's a very simple thing. It's a very, very, very thin moment. It's a moment of fragility, and that's the beauty. Beauty to me is very linked to fragility, is very linked to fragile, to let things go, to just, let's be human. Let's be there together. So to say something like that, which is a very simple thing, in my opinion, you need a very simple stratagem. You have a very simple thing. And when you think about, okay, it's about the person. So it's not about the light. It's about the person. If it's about the person, let's take just one light. And let's just try and make possible that with one light, you just see the person and the person becomes the star of the show, not the light. And then you think, okay, history of photography, Irving Penn, one light, yeah. And all the big portraits use one light. Very close, very, very close. That's the secret, because people think that there is a secret. So let's say the secret. The closer you are, the better it is. But that's not a secret, because you can put the light as close as you want. If you don't connect with the person you photograph, if you're not here to tell the story of this connection, you have a nice portrait. And we all can do nice portraits. Jean Lucieff was like a guy I liked very much. He was at the same agency I was represented with, a long time ago. He was a wonderful person. He was always saying that. He was always saying, what's the difference between an amateur and a professional photographer? What makes a professional photographer so many good images, but an amateur doesn't? And Jean-Loup was saying the amount of images that we make. It's just about that. So in a way, it's very true. In a way, it's not exactly true, but it's very true, because the thing is, you don't have a good portrait every time you take a portrait. You have to take many images, many portraits, and suddenly you have one. But the difference that there is between the right lighting and the right thing and the right moment, that's, you have this portrait because you were here with that person at the same moment, together in a real symbiosis, in a breath, in a moment of fragility, where you gave yourself to that person gave herself or himself to you. So a portrait is a very intense moment when it's like a great portrait, when it's a portrait that you put on the wall and that stays, that stays. You can look at the portrait and look at the portrait and look at the portrait for a long time. And you never get tired of it. That's because you are here. Look at the portraits of Abdon. That's this intensity. Look at the portraits of Irving Penn. That's this intensity. But the truth is, how many portraits did they shoot behind that? You don't see all the portraits. You see maybe 10%, 5% of the portrait and that's one of the things with portraitists. You don't just see a part of what they do. It's an editing of the part of what they do. So it's like a fraction. So to go back to the light, to the technique involved, it's just about the technique needs to disappear. In my opinion, the technique needs to disappear when you take a portrait. You need to do abstraction of everything. So to have like the technique disappear, the less you have around, the better it is. So I use one light, always. And even when you think that there is more, there is not more. It's just reflectors. And it's just the position of the light. It's just the size of the light. It's not, of course, there are like little details with the brand, the thing, and that's why we talk a lot with, like the little difference this lens is going to bring a little thing. And that's knowledge, that's experience. That's something that is you need to learn, and you need time to be able to learn what, a Balcar is going to give you, a Balcar from 1965 or, a Profoto from 1970, or everything is different. But it's just like, when you cook, you need to know your ingredients, and you need to know also what you're going to use to cook the ingredients. Always the same thing, to tell a story, and that's the story you want to tell. So then technique is very important too. I don't deny technique is important. But when you find your own thing, because you've learned, and that you have the knowledge, enough knowledge to tell stories, your own way, then clean out the field, just stay with what you need, and don't clean out your mind, and focus on the essential. Focus on what it is that you want to say. So what I want to say is to talk about this person and to talk about this moment that we share. It's a very intimate moment, very, very, very strong.
No, I mean, you touched on a lot of things that we've discussed in the past. You've just put it in your own very special and unique way, because you dig into a level that a lot of people are afraid to go to. You know, you share a lot more intimacy in your description of photography. Most people, they don't want to go there. They're afraid to go there, or maybe they're not afraid, or they just don't know how to have the capacity to kind of break it down into this level. So it's really fascinating to hear you talk about it on this level, because it is relatable. And one thing that we've talked about is, and one thing that I feel is that when I'm shooting with somebody, that's my performance. And I'm not trying to figure things out. I'm not thinking about my equipment. I'm not thinking about how many lights I have. I'm not thinking about what lens I'm using. I'm in that moment with that person, and I'm using the thing that makes sense for me, and that makes sense for the conversation, like you're saying. But the equipment is an inherent limitation. It's always going to be a limitation. There's only so much that the equipment can do for us. And I think what brought us all together is our common bond with certain types of equipment that help us to tell these stories. Because I know for me, I know for Daniel, I know for Mark, and I think for you, there is an emotional connection to certain pieces of equipment that you're not, like, for example, my Leica, you know, like this M9 with this FLE, I feel very emotionally connected to it in so many different levels. And it inherently makes me want to shoot, and make me want to shoot certain things in a certain way. The Sony, no emotional connection at all. It's a fine tool. It's incredible what it's capable of, but I have no connection to it. However, there are times when that is the right tool for the job. It'll be there, and I won't think about it.
Yeah.
But I know, so the point is that with the work that you've shared, there's a definite look to it. And I think what you're trying to say is that you've simplified, and I don't mean simplified in the sense that I'm minimizing it. You've basically taken a lot of the noise away, and have a setup now that you can have an intimate connection with your subject, and the equipment is there, but it's not there.
Yeah.
And I think that's
those medium. I mean, are those medium format, like the photo I just brought up on the screen, Michelle, so everyone can see what I'm talking about? Is this photo? To me, I see the grain on her face, the texture. Is that a medium format film?
Yeah. Yeah.
and that you're shooting professionally.
Yeah. I mean, yes, but no at the same time, because that's portrait is a very personal thing to me. And even when I shoot portrait for an ad, for a campaign, or for an editorial, it is the same intensity, because I do the casting whatsoever. My studio does the casting, or we do the casting with the client, with the magazine, with the casting director, and so I'm extremely involved in the casting. And the person I'm going to photograph is someone I really want to photograph. So there is this moment where it's not a job anymore. It's two people together who are talking to each other. And when I say talking, you can be talking in silent, just being there. And so professional, yes, but extremely personal. And that's when it works. That's when the personal meets the professional, and that, and that's yeah. So they're professional, and they're very personal, and a lot are done also just for me, just because I need to do the portrait very much. As I said to you, I live through the people. My life is nothing without the people,
So landscape photography is not your thing.
Well, it is sometime. It is sometime, but I guess, like everyone, there are moments where I want to be alone, and so I take my camera to think and to reflect. But that there are photographs that I do that I don't show. I always take pictures, and I am many photographers. I am many storytellers, and there are stories that I'm telling myself just for me, or for my wife, or for people who come and suddenly they see on my screen, or oh, what is that? You do that, yeah. So, but I explore things, and I've done a lot of landscape, and there are moments where I've done landscape down my in my work, in my career officially, but those landscapes were exploring the absence of someone.
Well, I did see some of those landscapes on your website, so I was kind of joking with you, but
so there is someone in landscape. It's to me, landscape is a portrait. When I do that I show it, that I consider it's a part of my work. It's a portrait of someone who disappeared. That's a little bit my take on landscape. It's not.
Well, you would have a field day in Alaska if you went to the central portion.
I sort of view every aspect of photography as a portrait. If I'm testing out, lately, I'm testing out a lens and I'm taking a shot of a window pane, it's a portrait of the window pane. If I'm taking, you said, a landscape, I view it as a portrait of the landscape. When I photograph products in my studio, leather bags, I'm taking portraits of each bag, and that's how I view it. I'm sure a lot of people may not view it that way, but I think in this group we all do. So it's nice to hear you say that as well. It's not something that we usually talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But
I feel that every time you're photographing, it's a collaboration. That if it's a person, then there's a real energy there.
Mm-hmm.
But even if it's an object like a leather bag or a motorcycle or a car or a building or whatever, you're still collaborating. There's still a give and take. There's a push and pull, and that, I think, inherently is what you're talking about, is that you actually are taking a portrait in that respect, and coming from a portrait photography standpoint, So it's interesting. I've always felt that there's a collaboration with whatever you're shooting.
Absolutely.
I never really. Go ahead.
No. We were talking, since you've been using some of these photos have been film. Are you personally processing them, or are you sending them out to labs, or is that something you just used to do?
When I shoot professionally and I shoot film, which doesn't happen anymore, but when I was still shooting film professionally, I didn't have time to process, so I was sending everything out. And also I was shooting a lot in color, so processing color is a bit like a pain. So everything was going out. But I'm a craftsman. The less people around do things, the more I have control, the better I feel. Because I consider that the work of a photographer is not to just press a button. It's to really be involved in every step of the process. And with digital photography, and especially in fashion industry, or in portrait photography, or in commercial photography, I would say, things have been very much dissolved, and photographers now take the picture, and they're like, clients are going to edit the images. Then there is a retoucher is going to work on the image, an art director, a creative director, etc., etc., etc. And the advertising process, workflow, I would say, which is the photographer take a picture, and then there are so many people behind working on the picture with the photographer most of the time, but sometimes not even with the photographer anymore, has become a little bit the rule for anything. Meaning, I see more and more young photographers who take the picture and they rely on a retoucher to make the picture look like the way they like the picture to look. So they come with reference. And the retoucher has to do the thing do the thing like that. Well, I'm going to be a little bit judgmental. I don't think this is the way it works, but I'm old school. I learned photography with a camera, a film. I was processing the film because I didn't have money to send the film away, And I had like a little lab, like, like every young photographer at that time. And I was like processing, printing. And that's how I learned. I learned to do the thing by myself. And I was like, retouching like the dust. And so this relation to photography was like from the moment, the thing happened to the moment the thing is a memory. But from nothing to the photograph, the print that stays. So everything matters. Everything matters to me. The paper you're going to choose, everything matters. And to me, everything matters still today, meaning that I feel extremely uncomfortable when I take a photograph that I'm not going to edit. That happens sometimes with some clients, they want to edit the thing themselves. So, depending on the money, they can. That's the thing. That's the sad rule of commerce.
Yeah, it is a little bit
so
uncomfortable when you shoot and deliver.
It is uncomfortable, but that's also the thing. You have to really have respect for the client. So we respect the position of the client. The client consider that that's what they want. You want to do the thing because you think that you're going to do the thing, that you're going to learn something, you're going to do something that you think is going to be interesting. So you do it and you accept the conditions. But my way of working is that I like to take the photograph. I like to edit photograph, to work with the client, to choose the photograph. And when I work, for an editorial or for, the picture leaves my studio. Nobody touches the picture. Nobody touches the file. There is no retoucher, any other retoucher than someone I've picked. And most of the time, I'm the one leading the all retouching if I am not doing myself the retouching. On very big projects, when I have time, I'm like literally behind the machine, which is extremely rare for a photographer. Like when you see a campaign like Dior or thing like that, I've done the thing like 90% Dior, and on some I've done the thing completely myself. But that's the craft. That's the way. Otherwise, I don't feel like I've done the job. Otherwise, I don't feel like So. I don't even remember the question to start, but I know that I was like something that mattered very much to me, where it's from the beginning to the end,
So are the pictures you're posting now, the black and whites, are they digital or are those film?
Oof. You know what? That's funny you ask that, because on Sunday, not tomorrow, but on Sunday, I'm going to do a post with like 5 pictures that I've picked already, and I'm going to say film or digital. Can you guess? Because I would like to see if people really can see.
Because in the digital, in the world we live in, I mean, I know for me, I want to film has that character, that warmth, the emotion that we're talking about, and I want to give a lot of times digital, no matter what camera you're using, is a little cold, it's a little clinical. So giving it the grain, I know you've sent me some photos and you're like, oh yeah, you add grain, and I've added grain for years, because why are you gonna, even if I shoot something at the base ISO, it's so clean and it's so smooth. Sometimes it's what I want, sometimes it's not what I want. So, and I think most people can be fooled, including professional and people that I don't know if that's more digital. And with the images you're putting, I think, but I don't know. And that's also you did a good job of whatever the medium is. I mean, if it's film, it's film. If it's the warmth, it's the feeling you get when you look at the photos. It's not always what you use to take them, but it's the end result.
It is also a very complicated and very complex question. Well, I'm going to debunk a myth. I was showing sometime pictures to Peter Lindbergh, who was like, "Oh, that's film," and I was like, "No, that's not film. That's digital." And the reason why he was not seeing the digital was because I was like breaking down the file so much. I had learned to torture the file so much to get rid of all the quality of the digital, which was the sharpness, the definition, and so many other aspects. And I had come to put together process techniques that were so crazy that in the end, believe me, I was like looking at the thing thinking, I couldn't say. I really honestly couldn't say. And that's one of the things, one of the crafts that I was talking about. That was when I turned to digital, I was desperate. I was literally desperate. I was shooting and I was thinking, I was coming from the Leica and the Kodachrome 200 and from the Mamiya 7 then with the Portra. And I was like, what is that? It's a Xerox. It's not a picture. It's not a photograph. There is no halftone. There is nothing. There is nothing. Just like, okay, it's a reproduction of the thing that I remember, and I don't even remember the thing like that. But yeah, I guess that, yeah, okay, it's sharp. It's so sharp. I was shooting 8x10 at that time, and I was like, it's sharper than 8x10. Yeah, it was very sharp, but that was the only thing. So I had to learn, and I didn't know anything. I had to learn from scratch. I didn't know Photoshop. I didn't know anything. I've never scanned an image. I had to learn everything to be able to take photographs, to do my portraits. Because I was not going to shoot my portraits all the time in film. It was like, I was shooting so much. And also because the business was turning to digital. So I was like, okay, I need to learn the technology of the business. I was desperate.
You can just send me those presets after this, okay?
Yeah, I will. Oh my God, if it was only preset. And so I learned technique. Like, for example, to do a picture in digital, then to do an internegative on the film, on the original film, and then to print, and then to scan the print, and then to rework the print. That's pretty intense. So in the end, believe me, let's debunk the myth. I can show you pictures that are shot in digital. I guess everyone will say it's film. But you know what? We're going to do the test on Sunday on my Instagram. 5 pictures.
Are you going to include like a one-to-one image as well, so that we can see the image close up?
I'm going to put the image in high res. All my pictures on Instagram, when you blow them up, they're high res. They're really like they're not 1:1 because I would be big, but sometimes, but they're big. Huh? When you really open the image with your fingers, yeah, you can dive in the image. Huh? That's high res. I don't
climb right in there.
I post high res because I texture matters so much to me that I think sometimes people are going to look at the thing and are going to see the texture. So on the one you have of the grain, you can pull, you're going to see.
You don't even have to.
It's insane. It's like really So the thing is, with that said, still, a lens has a signature that you will never be able to cheat, or that you will never be able to reproduce with a computer. Sensor, you don't really care, okay, because it can work.
Yeah.
But a lens has a character, and that's why I say often to you, the lens, everything is in the lens, okay? Your summicron will never be doable with a computer. Like, you take any Leica lens, and even like from, and you know that because we talk about that very much. You take a lens from the same one from a period to a period. People think, for example, that the 35 Leica, we're obsessed with the 35 Leica, but that's like 35 Leica is a very good example of where gear matters very much and where you cannot reproduce anything with the computer. Sometimes with the computer you have limits, and sometimes between film, digital, blah blah. It's not about that. Let's say people think that the Leica 35 made in Canada and in Germany are the same. They are exactly the same, but they are not the same. The reason why they are not the same is that because the sand is not the same. The sand they use to do the glass in Canada and the one they use in Wetzlar, in Solms, that's not the same. That's not the same. It's not the same. Look, I do a bagel in New York. It's going to taste fabulous. I do it in Los Angeles, and that's not a myth. It's not going to taste the same because the water is not the same. The water is not the same. You do a pizza in the north of Italy, and you do a pizza the same recipe in Paris, it's not going to be the same because the water is not the same. Simple fact.
Very simple fact.
So important. The water, the sand is not the same. So the Summicron 35 for Germany and Canada, people think that have one difference, the weight, because the metal wouldn't be the same. That's not because of the metal that the weight is different, guys. The metal is the same. The sand is not the same. So the difference of weight comes from the difference of glass. From there, you take two lenses, and you're going to notice that the Canadian is softer than the German. But the Canadian has a glow on the skin that the German doesn't have. So then you think, yeah, but I can print the image so it's going to look like the... No, that's something you cannot transform. How a lens see is how the eyes see. And the eyes, all of them see something different, different colors, different shapes. So that is absolutely crucial. And so you're going to choose a lens for what reason? You're going to choose, well, I'm going to choose this lens because I'm going to take this portrait of this girl and she has this skin, and so this lens is going to be better. You see what I mean? That's where the technique is magic. And that's where you cannot change the thing. You see what I mean?
Well, that's, one of the times we met up, I want to buy your, it was to buy your 35 1.4. And you came and we sat down and you put on the table your 35 1.4 and your 35 Summicron version 4 from Germany. And you explained to me the difference between the two lenses, what I wanted to do. And I walked out the door saving a lot of money and getting a different lens than what I thought I was going to get walking in. Yeah.
You sat and you wanted that lens. And I knew your images, and I thought to myself, but that's not what he needs. Yeah. Because you're romantic. And this lens that this 35 here that you have like that, it's not so romantic. But what's also very complicated, and here we're going to lose people. We're going to lose people. It is that there are different types of romanticism, first of all. So it depends also on the subject. So it depends also on what the photographer does. But then, and that's the complication we didn't have when we had film so much. Then the lens is not going to be the same depending on the body that's going to have behind. There are that guy, there are a lot of reviewers who they know a lot about cameras, but they have a knowledge about cameras that doesn't come from using them.
Right.
To say something that they need to say. Using them professionally in the sense that, okay, the client wants me to say that. How am I going to be able to say that? Because at the same time, that's what we were talking about. The camera matters. The camera doesn't matter because it's the mean, but the mean matters in the sense that, wow, if you don't have the right one, you're not going to go where you want to go, where you need to go. So then you need the knowledge to know what a camera can do and cannot do, and what a lens can do and cannot do. Now the complexity is also what a lens can do and cannot do, depending on the body. You have no idea of the time I spend at my studio to try cameras, lens together, things with light, because then there is the light that changed everything. So it's the technique matters tremendously, but at the same time, you need to get to a point of technique of knowledge where you need to know very much so you can forget everything. But the lens that you wanted, in my opinion, was not the right one compared to what you were doing with the camera you had. See what I mean? Since then, you've had new cameras, and so now it happens. That the lens.
It's been a busy month.
We're all very sick.
It's been a busy month. Don't speak for yourself.
This lens works well with this new camera that you have. I'm not going to mention. I'm not going to do too much advertising, but this lens works very well with this new camera that you have because it really fits what you see. However, we talked about that. You showed me a picture, and I said it's a very modern look. not sure not sure that this is your look, but if this is where you want to go, that's the right tool. And that's the part that is interesting of something you've shown me that I haven't seen yet. That's a direction that could be very interesting. So you see, it's all there. It's all there. The camera is.
So I think you're talking about the M10 monochrome files.
I didn't say anything.
No, but I'm putting it out there. So for me, I'm not struggling. I am constantly trying to, how do I work? The latitude I have with those files are enormous. So I'm trying to almost dumb it down in some situations and give it more character than, because it can produce, especially at the low ISOs, it just produces such smooth and clean, very medium, much more medium format to me than 35 millimeter. So it takes, I think, a little more work in post to get maybe a grittier, dirtier, yet image that has feeling. And it's very different than the M9 and the monochrome and the 246, which we've talked about a lot. But that's been my biggest, and I've been shooting a lot more with it, almost to like learn instead of going. Sometimes I could just go directly from the camera to the phone, and I'm like, oh fuck, it looks good, you know. But to learn about the files, I'm sort of diving into now, and seeing how I have to play with them to get it a little more of a silvery. But I also love, I'm a very contrasty. Lights, shadows, and the way it picks up the darks and the whites. I mean, it's like nothing I've ever used.
There's also a dimension with camera that we didn't really talk about, which is the fetish dimension. And the fetish dimension that's the tricky part, because I love cameras. And sometimes that's why I started to talk about that a little bit, saying, you know, you can be drawn to a camera or you can choose a camera for the wrong reason, and the camera is going to take you somewhere where actually that's not where you wanted to go, because you didn't know where you wanted to go. So the camera becomes like the leader, which is not what's supposed to happen, never. However, there is a fetish dimension in the sense that, you know, for example, I hate the Leica M9.
Oh.
I hate the Leica M9. It's a nightmare to use, but I love having Leica M9 so much in my hands. You see what I mean? So I
hate them, but I have 4 of them.
So here's my most hated camera. That's the camera I use the most today.
Why do you hate it so much?
I feel good. That's like my baby thing. It's like, you know, my transitional object. I feel good with the thing.
But why do you hate it?
Why do I need it?
No, hate.
Why do? Seriously? I mean,
we all love that chatter sound.
We love it.
Guys.
He's gonna bring out the P, the M10P.
Guys.
No.
There you go.
That sounds like a digital camera. The other one sounds like a real camera.
I'll show you like the Swiss clock of the low speed now.
It's like a tiny hand clap.
The shutter speed sounds a little off, a little slow.
Yeah,
it sounds
you should
like
have
my
that looked
MP.
at.
Yeah.
The mic's not good. This, you know.
What's that
Wait a
lens
second.
What's
you're saying
what's that lens you just floated in front of the camera?
That's
like
like
an
the
Apo.
Apo.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what it
Apo
was.
50.
Where's the other one?
I can't see because Daniel's in the screen.
Oh, he knows what lens it is.
I know. I'm just messing with you.
I love the M10P because the M10P is like best sound ever. It doesn't make any sound. It's so cool. It's so fast. It's like the best. I mean, it's a razor sharp.
Except
the
colors you don't like.
But you know what? I don't like to have it in my hands. I just don't like it, and I don't like the image. So here's the thing: the camera can be also a very, very fetish object, and the things that I you know. I love this thing.
I feel the same about the M10. I like holding it in my hands. I like using it, but
there is no emotional thing. And you were talking about the Sony. I'm sorry, Sony.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sony.
Sony doesn't give a shit. Sony's a computer. Sony has no feelings.
And
It's AI.
and sometimes I take my Canon, because my Canon 5D, not 2, 3, 4, 5D,
The original
Classic.
one.
D, like 100 years ago. 5D.
That's a cool camera, though.
because there is something special.
Yes.
So you see, the thing is, let's say, okay, you have a weakness, and that's the thing. You have a weakness. You go back with the girl, but you know she's not the right one, because you already left. It's over. It's finished. You know it was a mistake, but still you go back and you think, I'm going to try again. I'm going to give it a chance.
Just one more time.
Just one more
Gotten
time.
better, I swear.
It doesn't
I've gotten
work.
better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's not the right story, guys.
I've changed.
I've changed. But so that's where this whole thing is very complicated, because you cannot, I think, not develop a love for cameras when you're a photographer. It's not, those photographers who say, yeah, camera, I don't care, it's BS. No, it's not BS. It's snobism. And you know why photographers say that they don't like, that photographers don't talk about camera? It's like, yeah, because photographers are frustrated painters. And photographers think that if by any chance they give too much credit to the camera, people are going to think that, yeah, they're good because that's the camera is good, not them. And
Right.
Well, here's the thing. All photographers care very much about the camera. All photographers have a fetish relationship with cameras. And you will see that most of the photographers have the same obsession. They like hi-fi, high-end. They like fishing. They like beautiful cameras. They like beautiful watches and beautiful cars. They all have the same, and they all have like the same, when you go in psychoanalysis, they all have the same meaning. They all have the same background. They're all emotionally representing very much the same feel, the same. It's all about fetishism. It's all about fetish. So I don't care if people think that the camera, the camera matters. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine. The camera matters very much. But at the same time, you need to get to the point where it doesn't matter anymore. And so it's always a tension. It's always a fight. It's, I guess it's.
John, I just wanted to, because I didn't know your work before, actually. This is one of my favorite shots.
Thank you.
I just saw. This is the Polaroid, right?
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, 55.
Yeah, that's
4x5.
Beautiful.
That's the same thing. The Polaroid and portrait. That's moments where I'm very much on the. That's moments of my life where I'm very much on the verge, of transitions, of moments where the instant becomes everything. And when you shoot a portrait, I have different rhythm depending on the different period of my life and depending on moments and on days, on where I'm going to shoot a portrait faster or slower is going to depend also on the person, etc. And there are moments where the Polaroid comes back, where I want to go to the essence and to limit everything as much as possible. Like, for example, the 4x5 or the 8x10. The thing is, we always think that the camera needs to be transparent. And most of the time, yes, that's what I'm talking about a lot. Technique needs to be transparent. But sometimes, and it's a paradox, many paradoxes like that, sometimes you need to fight the tool. The tool needs to be a barrier. The tool needs to become an obstacle. Because actually, you need to be refrained. You need to be constrained to go back to the essence, to go back to what really means something, to get rid of the noise. To get rid of the noise, because that's a moment where you're like too free and you go all over the place. You need a tool that you're going to fight. And the Leica M9 is a very good example about that. Because Leica M9, after 5 images, you need to wait 2 hours.
Yeah.
So you need to
Go to a restaurant.
Grab a cup of coffee.
The truth is that when you shoot with the M6, you have 36 images. Huh? You don't have like a card of of 5,256 images. So with the M10P or with a fast thing or with the Sony is not a camera anymore. It's like a video camera.
Yeah.
You don't
Everything.
you film the thing, and then you cannot edit because that's a movie. And
One thing that just made me curious when you were working with these big Polaroids, what do you do if you shoot a model and then, okay, she closes her eyes are not open. You'd be like, you just wasted one expensive frame, I guess. Just keep shooting, or do you start shooting off just with the M6 maybe, and then go on to, okay, let's do Polaroid now? Or
if that's the thing that one does, you pray. Okay, so I can pray. I do that sometimes, often.
Right.
So you pray for the girl not to close her eyes, too much. And if you see that she closes her eyes too much, you think, okay, not today. I need to be restrained, but still, I'm going to try and make possible to shoot the image. For example, my wife, that I love very much, she has a thing with blinking. She loves blinking when the M9 shoots. She has a connection with the M9. She has a Wi-Fi or Bluetooth thing.
A blink.
My wife just turns her head.
She blinks when I shoot. It's a thing. It's a thing of her own. She knows that. So I take the M10P, because she's not having the same synchronization with the camera. She doesn't blink. It's not a joke. Huh? I swear. I swear.
So for that reason alone, it's worth keeping it.
When you see that the girl or the person you photograph is not going to be like the best candidate for this philosophical perspective, you think, okay, I need to take a picture. I'm going to take a raw reflex. It's going to be quicker.
Yeah.
But still, I'm going to be restrained. The raw reflex is a good thing. Look, like this thing is an amazing thing because you need to put your brain upside down. You need and left, right. So so suddenly going from a normal camera when you do a portrait, if you feel like you go too fast and you feel like you take that.
Yeah.
Take that. I was going to slow you down. You have no idea.
That's what I do. I use my Hasselblad.
Maybe than an 8x10, because you're going to look and you're going to be upside down and you're going to be left, right. So you'll be, wow.
Now with that prism on there.
So you know what is going to is going to forces you to look in front of you and have an image about that. The first time I took a mirrorless camera, it was a Fuji. And I love those little Fujis. They're amazing. They're amazing toys. They're very fetish toys. They're very like, I don't know why, but they have a thing on their own.
Yeah.
But you know what? I took the camera. That was the first time that I had a mirrorless. And I thought to myself, wow, I've never seen the world like that.
Through an electronic viewfinder.
I've never seen the world like I'm looking in the television. I am in the television. I am not looking at the world. I'm looking at the image of the world. And I've never seen the world becoming black and white. This is so cool. I don't even need to force myself to try and see in black and white, which, by the way, you don't force yourself. After years, you see in black and white when you work in black and white. No, here, it's like, wow, I see the thing. And so you follow the thing. I think, that's so cool. I look at the image already. And you know what? Check out on the Instagram. Saul Leiter was a very big man. He was such a wonderful man, such a wonderful photographer. It makes me so sad. It makes me, I feel so sad because he never had the respect, and he never had like he had to die to become Saul Leiter.
That's happened to some people.
That would be, you know what? That would be funny if Saul Leiter had been like one of the biggest photographers on the planet, to see that today everybody thinks that they're Saul Leiter, because Fuji has this incredible capacity of having Saul Leiter colors just by itself. And because when you put the camera, you see the picture of Saul Leiter and you think, that's simple, I'm going to reproduce. And so everybody is Saul Leiter.
Yeah.
But the thing is that my friend, who was a guitarist for you, who was an amazing guitarist, he taught me guitar. he had like a Stratocaster, like, you know, series L series, like the one of Hendrix, like the one, 61 or 62, I don't remember, but the white, like, and he was playing like Hendrix. And I was saying, brother, you play like Hendrix, you're a genius. And he was saying to me, no, I'm not a genius. Hendrix was a genius because he invented that. I'm just replicating. And you think that I'm doing that well because you don't know anything, but I'm not even doing that well. But you know what? There is the inventor, the one who comes first, and then there is the follower. I'm just following. I'm just following on the steps. Take the same guitar, I've learned everything, and I'm trying to replicate what I've heard. Well, here's the thing. The first time I looked through a Fuji, I was not looking at the word anymore. I was looking at the image of Fuji. And now when I'm looking at Instagram, when I look at all, you know, these guys who are taking very nice pictures, very nice, huh? That I feel like I'm looking at a soul lighter, I'm not looking at photographers. I'm looking at guys who are looking in the camera, who is looking like the eyes, like the colors of soul lighter, not like the eyes, like the colors of soul lighter made by a brand called Fuji. And when they see something that reminds them what they see in the book of soul lighter, they take a picture. The umbrella, big hit umbrella on Instagram, you know. So this is the paradox of the camera. See what I mean? And this is what, that's a perfect explanation, the perfect illustration of what I was trying to explain before. The camera can take you somewhere, but maybe that's not where you are meant to go or where you want to go. And maybe that's because you don't want to go anywhere. That saddened me to see that cameras today can be so sophisticated and can be so, you know, such amazing tools by themselves that you take them, you look through them, and you see amazing things, and you just press the shutter and you have amazing results. And I'm going to tell you something. Sometimes I'm lazy, like everybody else, maybe more often than everybody else, and I have a Fuji. It's amazing. It takes amazing photograph. Just by itself. Colors are brilliant. Just by itself. So when I feel like I'm really crappy, I take a Fuji. It makes me feel good.
I'll let them know that.
Yeah. Tell them.
This is a direct quote from JF.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're going to wrap it up now.
Okay.
I think, I mean, honestly, I think I might need like a full day to unpack all of the things that you mentioned and discussed and shared with us today, because this was probably the deepest dive that we've gone into the emotional, spiritual aspects of photography, you know, the really deep stuff, the stuff that goes so far beyond the equipment and the technical aspects of it, because so much of this is so what's in your mind and what's in your heart is so much what's important to being able to create beautiful imagery. So really, really interesting stuff today. And I think that if I had to title this episode, I think I would just quote you and I would say this one should be called The Paradox of the Camera. I don't know if you've ever really delved on that too much, but I think it really kind of encapsulates, you know, a lot of what was discussed today, and so happy to have you on today.
So happy to be with you guys. Such a pleasure to share this moment.
It's incredible. And, you know, just getting to know you, that's such a gift. It's so nice.
Thank you, Adam. Same for me. It's such a pleasure to get into you guys and to spend that time talking about life and photograph.
Beautiful. It's an absolutely beautiful thing. So I just want to mention to everybody, go and follow Jean-Francois Campos. It's one word, actually 3 words, but one word together on Instagram. I will put the link in the Instagram. From there, you can go to his website. You can look at his work. In fact, I would even recommend you just Google him and just hit the images portion so that you can see tons of different images. You can see, if you Google him, all of the different magazines news. I mean, there's books on Amazon. There is an enormous body of work that you are very humble about, obviously, because there was no point in this conversation where you were promoting any of these things. But I want to help promote these things because I think that people need to be familiar with your work. I'm very lucky that I got turned on to your work. I really find inspiration in your work. And then through talking with you, I feel like that inspiration is even reinforced further. So thank you, because now you make me want to work harder. And that's always a good thing.
That's a very nice compliment. I appreciate that. And thanks to you guys. I'm very, very touched to be here and very pleased and very honored.
Wonderful. Well, we wish you all the best in your family during this incredibly difficult time. Hope everybody stays safe and healthy. And that's it for now. And we'll see you soon.